At the same time, what I suggest would be one of the best things to do is take a lot of sea kelp, a lot of various seaweeds, and that's what I've been doing. But I happened to be in Los Angeles after this on Monday morning. Actually, I was there on the weekend, and Monday morning I walk into a health food store, and it was a fancy health food store, mind you, but the first thing they do is walk up to me and says, "You want a hit of iodine?" Now they literally had these little shots that you'd like a shooter, you'd shoot the in a mineral bouillon base, they'll shoot it back just to protect you. Potassium iodine, by the way, 65 to 135 milligrams, will protect you for about a day. You don't have to go crazy. But if you took 65 now until we found out if it's an incident for a few days, week or 2 weeks, then you're pretty well protected. If it really became a problem, you might want to up it to 150. But just so on the news today, there's the opposite end of the spin. Don't do potassium iodine, it'll hurt you. You're going to become hyperthyroid. Your thyroid's going to go kablooey if you take that much. Not the case unless you take really a lot over a period of time. Yes, if you're taking 1,000 milligrams, you're going to be off the wall, okay? But not if you're taking 65 milligrams. Probably it's really significant if you do have people around you taking potassium iodine, and you will, to know what the symptoms are of toxicity. So the symptoms of toxicity are an excessively metallic taste in your mouth, rashes, depressions, acne, headaches, nausea, lethargy, and hypothyroidism, hyper than hypothyroidism. So when you see those kinds of symptoms, geez, sounds like a normal day at the office to me, you might be indicating that the person's taking too much. But if you're taking a couple grams of kelp daily, that could be pretty good prevention. Probably the most interesting study that's ever happened on this, I guess it's not interesting, but we do know in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people who are eating large amounts of miso and large amounts of enoki mushrooms never got any of the radiation toxicity problems. So we do know miso soup is good, especially if you put some seaweed in it. That makes a lot of sense, and yes, I did have it for lunch today, thank you. And I also had a bunch of nori for lunch. Geez, that gives me an excuse to go to a sushi restaurant. Yummy. But I have been doing a lot of sea vegetation. You might remember last week we talked about one of the strongest ingredients to be able to use for this. Does anyone remember what that was? Sodium alginate. Sodium alginate doesn't particularly work on iodine, radioactive iodine, but it'll pull radioactive isotopes out of your body. Myself, I do it for 2 to 4 weeks every spring anyway. I might do it just a little earlier. It wouldn't hurt to take a lot of sodium alginate right now to pull background radiation out of your body, just in case we get ratted in the next little while. Probably it's not going to be that big a deal. Okay? So there's many forms you can take sodium alginate. One of the easiest ways to take it is noodles. No, I don't own shares in this company. Kelp noodles are, those clear, glassy noodles that you can get dried. These ones just have to be the raw ones that aren't dried. And taking even a couple tablespoons of this daily, even a teaspoon of this daily would help. But these noodles are easy to give to kids even. So as a form of being able to pull it out of the body, that would be it. You can make it as a salad, you can make it as a noodle dish, you can almost make it as Ichiban type thing. And I'm suggesting a thing like this would feed 3 to 4 people. Do it 2 to 3 times a week and you're continuously pulling the radiation out of the body, which would probably be good in most situations. Of course, you can mix it with a bunch of mixed seaweeds and you can get the fresh seaweeds in the marketplace too. They're stable on the shelf for about 6 months, but if they're open, they have to be refrigerated after that. Other things that we know that have really worked well in this is medicinal mushrooms. They really help. And so we're really talking about 2 capsules twice daily of the average medicinal mushrooms, or I'm talking about 1,000 milligrams twice daily of the concentrate powders of the medicinal mushrooms. You could be eating a lot of shiitake, a lot of enoki, a lot of maitake. All of those things will help. Krella is also extremely good here. We're talking about 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day would probably be good. There's all kinds of other vegetables that will start pulling these things out, but for all intents and purposes, for the level of paranoia it is, that would probably do. But that brings us around to a completely other situation. I would say the news media is created a level of anxiety and fear among people that's unrealistic. And I'm suggesting this is the light issue. This might become way worse in the future. And because these issues are going to keep up, if we have a lot of Earth changes, if the Mayans are really right in that whole phenomena, then it's good for us to prepare. I created a product that I've used ever since the 9/11 incident. I created around that called Rescue ER. Rescue ER is very specific for being able to take you out of that anxious state, and so you don't lose your head while other people around them are losing theirs. You can make up your own one. The most specific thing that we would want for protection is the yarrows. The 3 yarrows are very useful for creating boundaries. And this is even including radiation. Any of those deeper composites will work. Tansy will work, Gaillardia will work, but the yarrows are by far the most specific. Okay? But the one that's really important to make it so you don't lose your way, as it were, the superior man doesn't lose their head when other people around them doing it, doesn't go into that mass mob consciousness, is red clover. It's very important. Since the first level of attack would be usually on your thyroid, we strongly suggest that it would be useful to take Snapdragon. And there's other things you can be taking like mullein, dandelion. These would all give you a strongness, but sometimes you just need self-support, and so self-heal would be useful. These are the kind of things that are in the Rescue ER anyway, but just to give you an idea. Does anyone have any other questions or comments on this whole process? Yes?
So you think it's fine to just do kelp instead of the potassium iodine?
Do I think it's just fine to do the kelp? At the levels we're concerned right now, I think eating a fair amount of kelp, nori, those sea vegetables are good. Some authorities are saying you have to eat up to 25 grams a day of kelp. Not. Their math was off by a factor of 10. 2 grams, 2.5 grams is certainly enough to be able to work with that.
You're talking about dried kelp?
I'm talking about dried kelp powders or the nori sheets or those kinds of things. It doesn't hurt to have more. So in my house, whenever I make soups and stews and stuff like that, instead of putting salt in, I always throw seaweeds in. Even when I'm making a pot of rice, instead of putting some salt in, I'll throw some wakame in there or some other seaweeds. But I particularly find that seaweeds are beneficial for all kinds of things, but certainly radiation toxicity.
And
Yes?
do you know anything about like the nascent iodine? It's like a liquid.
The nascent iodine?
Yeah. Apparently it's like much better.
I don't know what the nascent iodine is. We used to use one in the past called Atomidine, which was really created a formula for these events by Edgar Cayce. And it was actually a specifically radioactive isotope of iodine that actually would really protect the thyroid. I haven't seen that, but I don't know what the nascent iodine is, so I can't make a comment on it. It might be the same thing. Now, there are some people that have gone out there and actually fanned a fair amount of scare on this, suggesting that you better pick all the medicinal mushrooms because we're not going to be able to use them for the next 10 years. Or suggesting that, oh my God, you're not going to be able to eat any vegetables in your yard next year. And if it got really bad, that might be the case. You might have to grow them indoors, in solariums. In case you know anyone has a solarium, that is, or greenhouses. How will it work? Well, we'll have to price that as it is. This is why some people, by the way, like to keep a lot of sprouting seeds around so they can sprout things indoors and still get the greens and the vitality. But don't worry, if it becomes really bad next week and the week after, we'll be talking about it and figuring out ways to get around it. Yes?
I had some ladies say they didn't want to eat chlorella from Japan anymore. Like if the bottle said it was from Japan, they didn't want it. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so first of all, Japan doesn't grow chlorella. Most of the chlorella is coming through Japan, but most of the chlorella in the world is actually grown in Taiwan. They ship it over to Japan and they work with it, and then they ship it to the United States and ship it to us. So some of the Japanese chlorella is some of the most expensive in the world just because it's gone from the yuan to the yen to the US dollar to Canada dollar. So really it's middlemen that are doing that whole thing. As far as I'm concerned, even though an awful lot of them have, and I've done a lot of research around chlorella over the year, I don't think there's any company growing chlorella in Japan. It just takes up too darn much space and they don't have it there. And there's these big vats that have already been prepared in Taiwan, so they're probably just buying it off Taiwanese sources. So it's just a middleman. I don't think that'd be an issue unless it was in the, let's see what happens. I think that they might have it under control, but we don't know. The only thing that's really worrying me about this whole thing is Obama said, I've been informed that. And that just, I know what's coming after that ain't good.